We're going to start with LSU football. And football? What do you mean? Well, football's kind of back. LSU is on the practice field in 3 days. On Saturday, they will crank up their spring football practices. And so today, I want to talk a little bit about the LSU defense. And then tomorrow, we'll talk a little bit about the LSU offense as we get ready for spring football. And I wrote a piece for LouisianaSports.net that I'll kind of expound upon here in radio and podcast form. And that's 3 players to watch on the defense during spring football this year. And generally speaking, y'all have an understanding of what spring football is, especially when you've got returning coordinators. If you're trying to install an entirely new system, yeah, like these 3-4 weeks of practices, like they can be heavy on install and you can really change the identity of a football team over the course of a spring. That's not what we're looking at here. You're not looking at a situation where you're overhauling either side of the ball. You want to improve, but you've got a lot of key players coming back on both sides, and you've got coordinators coming back on both sides. So, to me, it's a little bit of a lighter transition in that way. I've identified 3 guys that I think are going to go through really important springs, and they're really all in different stages of their careers. But it's not something where I think everybody is massively impacted here, like it would be if there was a coordinator change or an identity change on either side of the football. So, who am I looking at here in terms of spring football on the defense? I'll start with DJ Pickett. DJ Pickett is the crown jewel of this signing class. Once Bryce Underwood moved on, he was like the next dude. Had to keep him around. Kept him around. Got the signature. DJ Pickett enrolled early. He was working out with LSU prior to the Texas Bowl practices. So he's been around a little bit now that we're in the middle of March. He's been there since, early March. He's been there since the middle of December. But DJ Pickett needs to put on some weight. He needs to understand the offense, the defense, and he needs to assimilate himself to dealing with college wide receivers, because I believe firmly that he's going to play early and he's going to play often. You look at LSU's defense. In 2023, only Vanderbilt allowed more passing yards per game in the SEC than LSU. Only Vanderbilt. Anytime I say only Vanderbilt's worse in SEC football, you got issues. LSU clearly had issues 2 years ago on defense. You all know that. But last year, you were 12th in the SEC in yards per attempt allowed and 12th in completion percentage allowed. LSU has not had the type of talent in the defensive backfield that they were used to over the course of better than a decade in a little bit. And DJ Pickett brings that kind of talent. Yes, Mansour Delane absolutely factors in here. Yes, Jakeem Jackson absolutely factors in here. Yes, Ashton Stamps absolutely factors in here. PJ Woodland's going to play. But Pickett provides the talent level that is beyond all of those guys. He's 6'4". He's got great instincts and great ball skills. He's the type of talent that we're used to seeing come into LSU, play for 3 years, and jet out of here in the first round. That needs to start sooner rather than later. Your first football game is against Cade Klubnik, who is going to be among the top 5 in just about every Heisman odds you find on the internet. So DJ Pickett needs to get up to speed quickly. It helps that by the time LSU plays Clemson, he's going to have been on campus for 10 months, but this is a crucial part of that 10 months. I think DJ Pickett needs to have a really good spring in terms of developing his body, in terms of understanding his assignment, in terms of adjusting to the physicality of dealing with SEC-level wide receivers. DJ Pickett, my number 1 guy to watch for LSU's defense in the spring. Number 2, Dominick McKinley, another former 5-star. He's got 10 college games under his belt. That's more than Pickett. But you're talking about a guy who came in during fall camp, got hurt, missed the first 3 weeks of the regular season, and I think that put him a little bit behind. Even when Jacoby and Guillory went out, he still wasn't immediately the guy that they plugged in there because he was trying to catch up. In terms of the body, like, he's got it. He's 6'6". He's 315 pounds. Like, he's a big dude. He's got to learn to play with better technique, and he's got to continue to get stronger. The problem with Dominick McKinley right now, and it has nothing to do with Dominick McKinley, is that he doesn't have a position coach. That's an issue. LSU's trying to practice in 3 days. I don't know who's blowing the whistle in front of Dominick McKinley. That's a problem. But when you look at that kind of frame, that kind of talent, that kind of profile, and a little bit of production late in the season, he had 2 sacks against Oklahoma. It wasn't a work of art. He's still got to work much harder on his leverage and playing below people's pads. It's hard to do at 6'6", 315. But that's a guy who theoretically could be a difference maker for LSU. Having Jacoby and Guillory as a resource for him is a big deal. He and Ahmad Bro are very close. Those 2 guys have spent a lot of time together, and I think are going to push each other. And so whoever LSU hires to be the new defensive line coach is going to be pivotal in McKinley's development, but I'm excited for what he could be. You're talking about a rushing defense for LSU that gave up the most rushing touchdowns in the SEC last year, a rushing defense that allowed the most 40-plus yard runs last year. You've got to stop the run way better than LSU did. McKinley could be a big component to that. Big spring for him. Number 1, DJ Pickett. Number 2, Dominick McKinley. Number 3, this is not a young player. This is not a guy who needs a lot of physical development or maturity. Not a guy who is completely unproven, just raw potential. This is a guy who's got a lot of production in his college days. It's Patrick Payton, 5th-year senior edge player from Florida State. Payton comes to LSU with 31 and a half career tackles for loss and 16 career sacks. That essentially is Barkevious Mingo's career at LSU. So you look at him and you go, well, what does that guy need spring football for? He's a 5th-year senior, been productive. Like, these are the kind of guys that you give springs kind of off to. He knows where to be. He knows what to do. He's an edge rusher. He's been an edge rusher for 4 years. All that's true. And it's very much rooted in truth. But I saw what Kevin Peoples did for Bradyn Swinson and Savion Jones last year. I saw Kevin Peoples translate Bradyn Swinson from a 5-sack player over 4 years. He had 5 sacks in 4 years. I saw him blossom in an 8.5-sack player in his final college year. If he can make Bradyn Swinson a feared pass rusher after Swinson had 5 sacks in 4 years, what can he do with a guy that's got 16 career sacks? That remains to be seen, but I'm excited to watch some of it in the spring. Pass rush moves, technique, leverage, hand placement, quickness, all that, whatever it is, I want Kevin Peoples doing it because he made Bradyn Swinson and Savion Jones much better players than they were previously. And this guy's already better than what those guys have been. So I'm all about Patrick Payton getting to work with Kevin Peoples and developing. That is a 5th-year senior that I do want to see pop in the pads in the spring. Not some sort of unreasonable workload, but this is a new tutor for the pupil. I'm all for it. LSU's defense has to improve. I'm not going to rehash the entire segment back from January, but I can paraphrase. I looked back at statistics, and I think a lot of us looked at LSU's defense this past year and went, well, it took a step forward. Like, okay, that's good. Because you were so bad in 23, go back and look at the stats for 24. It's bad defense. It's a bad defense relative to what we expect LSU to be. And if you expect LSU to be a team that competes at the top of the SEC, that knocks on the door for the playoff, that gets in the playoff, that makes a run in the playoff, that competes for a national championship multiple times every 5 years. And if that's the standard at LSU, they grossly fell short on defense. Statistically, wins and losses, production-wise, all of it. NFL draft will show the same thing. It's not the same as it once was. And to get back to being at the top of the sport, at the top of the conference, you've got to play significantly better defense. And so I've highlighted a true freshman who's got an NFL profile. I highlighted a former 5-star who's entering year 2 at a position where in year 1 you generally don't get a lot. And I've highlighted a 5th-year senior who needs to take one more step to become a dominant edge rusher, potential all-conference type player, potential first, second, third round pick. DJ Pickett at corner, Dominick McKinley at defensive tackle, Patrick Payton at edge. Those 3 guys, to me, are the guys to watch in the spring for LSU. Yes, I'm curious about Ahmad Bro, who I mentioned. Yes, I'm curious about some of the other edge guys they brought in, like Jack Pyburn, like Jamari Butler. Yes, I want to see what Tamarcus Cooley does and where Mansour Delane lines up, and I want to see Ashton Stamps improve, and what is Harold Perkins able to do? What is Jacoby and Guillory able to do? Maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing. There are plenty of other storylines to look at on this defense. These are the three that I think are the most important to LSU's 2025 hopes, because all three of these guys have monster potential that they have not reached fully. Hopefully this spring is a step in that direction for LSU. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.